of the Cornfield. Every town has that place. The one no one talks about, the one everyone warns you to stay away from. In our town, that place was Miller's Cornfield, and it wasn't the field itself, though, that people feared. It was what lived within it. The corn towered high, taller than a man and thick as a wall, and rumors spread that something was watching from within the rows. Years ago, farmers would mention strange sounds, objects disappearing, animals going missing. Over time, a story emerged of a figure known only as the Keeper, a twisted, faceless creature said to patrol the corn, watching, waiting for anyone who dared to enter. Miller's Cornfield lay silent and empty by day, but by night it transformed into something alive. Lights would flicker and dance through the stalks, and some claimed to hear a faint scraping sound, like metal dragging against stone. On Halloween night, 5 friends, daring each other to enter the field, decided to find out for themselves if the Keeper was real. Armed with flashlights and a bold, reckless energy, they slipped past the old wire fence and stepped into the field. The moment they crossed the threshold, it felt like something was watching them. The corn was dense, walls of green and gold stretching high, casting strange, elongated shapes in the dim light. They laughed nervously as they made their way deeper, but soon the laughter faded as an uneasy silence settled over them. The air grew heavy, damp, and thick, filling their lungs with each breath. Then they heard it, the faintest scraping sound coming from somewhere deep in the field. It was slow, methodical, like metal against rock. They glanced at each other, unsure but too proud to admit they were scared. They kept moving, turning corners as the rows closed in tighter around them. After what felt like hours, the flashlight beams started to flicker. One of them, Jess, glanced back and saw that their path had disappeared. It was as if the corn had grown together, closing off their exit. She stopped, her heart pounding. Did anyone see which way we came from? No one could remember. Panic was rising, and that's when they noticed the lights in the distance. Small, flickering orbs glowed from deep within the rows, like eyes watching them. The scraping sound grew louder, coming closer, echoing from every direction as if the field itself was alive. They spun around, flashlights trembling, the beams casting wild patterns across the stalks, and then they saw it, a figure looming just beyond the edge of their lights. It was tall, impossibly tall, with limbs twisted and thin, stretched into unnatural angles. Its face was featureless, covered in a mask of burlap that seemed to twitch and breathe. The Keeper. They bolted, tearing through the corn, ignoring the cuts and scratches as the sharp leaves whipped at their faces and arms. But no matter which direction they ran, the Keeper was always just a few steps behind, moving with an unnatural speed. It was as though the corn bent to let it pass, closing in tighter to trap them. The lights began to blink out one by one. Jess screamed as she felt something cold and sharp graze her ankle. She stumbled, falling into the dirt, and when she looked up, she saw the Keeper standing over her. Its hands, long, bony fingers tipped with rusted metal claws, reached down, grazing her face as it tilted its head, examining her. The others heard her scream and tried to pull her back, but the Keeper lunged forward, snatching Jess and dragging her deeper into the rows. Her screams faded, swallowed by the night and the corn. The remaining 4 were frozen, paralyzed with terror, knowing they had to run but unable to move. Then, as if waking from a trance, they took off, desperately crashing through the corn, not caring which direction, only wanting to escape. But every time they thought they'd broken free, they'd find themselves right back where they started, like the rows themselves were shifting, trapping them in an endless maze. One by one, they fell, each of them caught in the Keeper's grasp, disappearing into the dark, dragged down by bony fingers that gripped too tight, voices muffled and choked as they vanished. The last one left was Tom, gasping, exhausted. The only light left a faint glow on his dying phone. He stumbled forward, eyes wild, heart hammering until he saw an opening ahead. He pushed through, bursting out of the corn, and fell to his knees in relief, breathing in the cool night air. But as he looked up, his relief turned to horror. He was back at the entrance, the exact spot where they'd started. His friends were gone. Only the rusted fence and the endless corn remained. He turned to leave, but a faint scraping sound drifted out from the rows behind him, growing louder, closer. The last thing he saw was the Keeper's silhouette, towering over him before the rows of corn closed around him, sealing his fate. By morning, there was no trace of the friends, only scattered footprints and a broken flashlight near the edge of the field. The townspeople would tell tales of that Halloween night for years, warning others to stay far from Miller's Cornfield. But if you go out there after dark, some say you can still hear the faint scraping sound and the muffled cries of those who never found their way back.